Right now, someone is studying you. They've memorized your insecurities. They know what makes you doubt yourself. They've cataloged every weakness you've accidentally revealed in casual conversation. And they're using that information against you. Not with violence, not with threats, with something far more devastating: precision psychological warfare designed to make you destroy yourself from the inside out. In the next 35 minutes, I'm going to reveal the 27 weapons in the narcissist's arsenal. The exact mind games they use to dismantle your reality, your confidence, and your sanity. More importantly, I'm going to show you how to recognize these attacks in real time and how to defend yourself. Because awareness isn't just power, it's survival. Welcome back. If this is your first time here, I analyze the darkest aspects of human psychology, the tactics predators use, the patterns law enforcement recognizes, and the survival intelligence most people never learn until it's too late. Today, we're diving deep into narcissistic manipulation. Now, I need to be clear about something up front. When I say narcissist, I'm not talking about someone who takes selfies or cares about their appearance. I'm talking about individuals with either narcissistic personality disorder or strong narcissistic traits. People who lack empathy, require constant admiration, and will destroy anyone who threatens their ego. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit has studied these personality types for decades. Why? Because understanding manipulation tactics isn't just about bad relationships. It's about recognizing patterns that show up in cult leaders, con artists, abusers, and yes, even some serial killers. The research is clear. Narcissistic manipulation follows specific, identifiable patterns. 27 of them, to be exact. Here's what makes this knowledge critical right now. These tactics work because they're invisible. They operate below your conscious awareness, slowly eroding your sense of reality until you can't trust your own perceptions anymore. By the time most people realize what's happening, they've already lost years of their life. But once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. This isn't theory. This isn't pop psychology. This is a detailed breakdown of psychological weapons that have been documented in clinical research, criminal investigations, and thousands of survivor testimonies. We're going to go through all 27 tactics. I'll explain what each one is, how it works, how to recognize it, and most importantly, how to defend against it. Stay until the end. Because the last 5 tactics, those are the ones they use when they know you're catching on. When they're getting desperate. That's when they become truly dangerous. Let's begin. The concept. The first weapon in the narcissist's arsenal is the one you'll never see coming because it feels like love. It's called idealization, but you probably know it as love bombing. Here's how it works. In the beginning, they shower you with an intensity of attention and affection that feels unprecedented. They mirror your values, your interests, your dreams. They claim your soulmates, twin flames. They've never met anyone like you. The psychological principle? They're creating a baseline of euphoria so high that when they eventually withdraw it, you'll do anything, sacrifice anything to get it back. The reality? Let me tell you about Sarah. 3 weeks into dating Marcus, he'd already told her he loved her, introduced her to his family, and started planning their future together. He texted her every morning with paragraph-long messages about how she'd changed his life. He showed up at her work with flowers. He called her his missing piece. 6 months later, those same behaviors disappeared overnight. The affection, the attention, the validation gone. And Sarah found herself desperately trying to figure out what she'd done wrong, how she could get back to that magical beginning. She didn't realize the beginning was the weapon. This plays out everywhere. In workplaces where a new boss showers you with praise before slowly withdrawing approval. In friendships where someone becomes intensely close incredibly fast. The speed and intensity are the warning signs, not the romance. The warning signs. Watch for disproportionate intensity relative to the length of time you've known someone. Future planning that happens too fast. Declarations of uniqueness, you're not like anyone they've ever met. Mirroring that feels almost uncanny, where they seem to share every interest you have. And here's the key. Genuine connection builds gradually. Manipulation starts at maximum intensity. The defense. Slow it down. Deliberately. If someone's moving at warp speed, pump the brakes and watch their reaction. Healthy people will understand and adjust. Narcissists will react with frustration, guilt-tripping, or accusations that you don't care enough. Trust the pace, not the passion. But idealization is just the setup. Let's talk about what happens when the mask starts to slip. The concept. This is the most psychologically addictive tactic in the arsenal, and it comes straight from behavioral psychology research. Intermittent reinforcement means they give you rewards, affection, approval, kindness, on an unpredictable schedule. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. You can never predict which version of them will show up. Why is this devastating? Because unpredictable rewards create stronger addiction than consistent rewards. It's the same principle that makes slot machines so addictive. The uncertainty keeps you hooked, always pulling the lever, hoping this time you'll hit the jackpot. The reality, one day they're warm, affectionate, complimentary. You think, see, we're fine. I was overreacting. The next day they're cold, distant, critical. You think, what did I do? How do I fix this? You're not crazy. You're being conditioned. Casino designers figured this out decades ago. If a slot machine paid out every time, you'd get bored. If it never paid out, you'd stop playing. But if it pays out just enough, just unpredictably enough, you'll empty your bank account chasing the next win. Narcissists use the same algorithm on your emotions. A forensic psychologist I studied under worked on a case where a woman stayed with an abusive partner for 17 years. When asked why, she described these moments of tenderness that would appear randomly. A surprise gift, an unprompted I love you, a night where he seemed like the man she originally fell for. Those moments were strategically deployed rewards that kept her trapped in the cycle. The warning signs. You're constantly confused about where you stand. Their mood toward you swings dramatically without clear cause. You find yourself working harder and harder for scraps of approval you used to get freely. You're always walking on eggshells, trying to figure out which version of them you're going to get. Here's the test. Can you predict their reactions? Healthy relationships have consistency. Manipulative ones have chaos. The defense. Stop chasing the rewards. Recognize that the occasional good treatment doesn't erase the pattern of bad treatment. Track the patterns over weeks, not days. Write it down if you need to. The inconsistency itself is the abuse. And understand this, you're not trying to figure out what you did wrong. You're dealing with someone who uses confusion as control. The concept. If intermittent reinforcement makes you addicted, gaslighting makes you helpless. Gaslighting is the deliberate manipulation of someone's perception of reality. They deny things they said. They claim events didn't happen the way you remember. They insist you're too sensitive, too emotional, too crazy. The term comes from a 1944 film where a husband manipulates his wife into questioning her sanity. But the tactic is ancient. The goal? To make you dependent on their version of reality because you can no longer trust your own perception. The reality. I never said that. Yes, they did. You remember clearly. That's not what happened. But you were there. You know what happened. You're remembering it wrong. Are you? Maybe you are. Maybe your memory is faulty. Maybe you're the problem. See how it works? This shows up in workplaces constantly. A boss takes credit for your idea in a meeting. When you bring it up later, they act confused. That was a collaborative effort. Why are you being so territorial? Suddenly, you're the problem for having a normal human response to theft. It shows up in families. Parent says something cruel. When confronted, they act wounded. I would never say that. You're being dramatic. Why are you always attacking me? Now you're comforting them for hurting you. In relationships, a partner flirts with someone openly. When you express discomfort, they respond with, "You're so insecure. I can't even have friends." You're being controlling. The issue shifts from their behavior to your reaction. The warning signs. You're constantly questioning your own memory. You apologize compulsively, even when you're not sure what you did wrong. You hesitate to bring up issues because you're never sure if you're overreacting. You feel crazy, but you can't pinpoint why. The phrase, "you're too sensitive," appears frequently. So does "you're imagining things," or "that never happened." The defense. Document everything. Keep a journal. Save text messages. record dates and details of conversations. You're not being paranoid. You're protecting your sanity. Trust your memory. If you clearly remember something happening, it happened. Even if they deny it, even if they act confused, even if they make you feel crazy for bringing it up. And here's the hard truth. If someone consistently makes you question your own perception of reality, you're not in a relationship. You're in a hostage situation. The concept, triangulation, is when the narcissist brings a third party into the dynamic to manipulate you. This could be an ex they won't stop mentioning, a colleague they constantly compare you to, a friend whose opinion they cite to undermine yours. The third person doesn't even need to know they're being used as a weapon. The psychological mechanism here is social comparison and manufactured competition. They're creating a scenario where you're constantly measuring yourself against someone else, usually losing that comparison. Why is this effective? Because humans are tribal. We're hardwired to care about our standing relative to others. Narcissists exploit this wiring mercilessly. The reality: well, Jennifer understands me. She doesn't get upset over little things like you do. My ex never had a problem with this. Everyone thinks you're being unreasonable. Notice the pattern? They're using other people to validate their perspective and invalidate yours. Here's what's insidious. Sometimes Jennifer isn't real. Sometimes the ex never existed. Sometimes everyone is nobody. They're creating phantom competition to keep you off balance. I analyzed a case study where a man kept his girlfriend in a constant state of jealousy by frequently mentioning a female coworker. He'd say things like, "Rachel made the funniest joke today," or "Rachel always knows what I mean." The girlfriend became obsessed with Rachel, convinced she was a threat. Rachel was 62 years old and happily married. She barely interacted with him. The threat was imaginary. The manipulation was real. The warning signs: they frequently compare you to others in ways that make you feel inadequate. They talk about exes constantly, often positively, often when you're vulnerable. They cite mysterious friends or everyone who supposedly agrees with their perspective. You feel like you're in competition for their attention, approval, or affection. Not just from romantic rivals, but from friends, family, even strangers. Here's the tell. Healthy people don't pit people against each other. They don't need to manufacture drama between the people in their lives. The defense: refuse to compete. When they bring up comparisons, respond with indifference. "That's nice," or "I'm glad she understands," without emotion. Recognize that triangulation requires your participation. If you refuse to engage with the competition, the tactic loses power. And pay attention to this. If they're willing to trash other people to you, they're trashing you to other people. The triangle has many points. The concept: projection, is when the narcissist accuses you of the exact behaviors they're guilty of. It's a psychological defense mechanism where they take their own unacceptable traits, feelings, or behaviors and attribute them to someone else. Usually you. Clinical psychologists see this constantly. The cheater who constantly accuses their partner of cheating. The liar who calls everyone else dishonest. The manipulator who insists everyone is trying to control them. Why do they do this? Sometimes it's unconscious, they genuinely can't see their own flaws. Sometimes it's strategic, the best defense is a good offense. Either way, the result is the same. You end up defending yourself against accusations that actually describe them. The reality: they cheat on you, then accuse you of being unfaithful. You spend weeks proving your loyalty instead of addressing their betrayal. They lie constantly, then tell everyone you can't be trusted. You develop a reputation as dishonest while they maintain their facade of honesty. They manipulate everyone around them, then claim you're trying to control them. Suddenly you're the villain in a story they're writing. Here's a real example from forensic psychology research. A man was emotionally abusing his wife, controlling her finances, isolating her from friends, monitoring her every move. When she finally sought help, he told the therapist that she was the controlling one. He was just trying to protect himself from her manipulation. The therapist initially believed him. That's how effective projection can be. The warning signs: their accusations feel oddly specific, like they're describing themselves. You're constantly defending yourself against claims that don't match your behavior. They seem obsessed with certain flaws in others that you've never noticed. Pay attention to the pattern. What they accuse you of is often exactly what they're doing. It's confession masquerading as accusation. The defense. Stop defending yourself. This is critical. When they accuse you of something you didn't do, your instinct is to prove your innocence. That's exactly what they want. You, on the defensive, focused on their accusation instead of their behavior. Instead, redirect. That's an interesting accusation. Let's talk about your actual behavior. And remember this. People who genuinely trust you don't constantly accuse you. Projection reveals their mindset, not yours. The concept. Word salad is a communication tactic where the narcissist responds to straightforward questions or concerns with circular, confusing, contradictory nonsense designed to exhaust you. It's not that they can't understand you. It's that they don't want to be held accountable, so they create linguistic chaos. The psychological principle here is cognitive overwhelm. Your brain tries to process what they're saying, looking for logic, looking for meaning. But there is no logic. There is no meaning. That's the point. While you're trying to untangle their words, the original issue disappears. The reality. You ask a simple question. Why did you tell Sarah I was upset about the promotion when I specifically asked you not to? Their response. I don't understand why you're attacking me. I was trying to help. You always do this, you twist everything. Sarah asked me a question, what was I supposed to do, lie? You're being unreasonable. I thought we were past this. You know I would never intentionally hurt you. This is exactly what I was talking to my therapist about. How you make me feel like I'm always walking on eggshells. I can't do anything right. Notice what happened? Your specific question about a specific behavior got buried under accusations, deflections, and tangential complaints. Now you're defending yourself instead of getting an answer. This tactic shows up in corporate environments constantly. An employee asks management about promised bonuses. Management response includes vague references to market conditions, company values, team player attitudes, and future considerations, everything except an actual answer. The warning signs. Conversations that should take 30 seconds take 30 minutes and leave you more confused than when you started. Simple questions get complicated, circular responses. You leave conversations feeling crazy, exhausted, or unsure what just happened. They answer questions you didn't ask while ignoring questions you did ask. Here's the test. Try to summarize their response. If you can't, it's word salad. The defense. Refuse to engage with chaos. When they launch into word salad, interrupt. That doesn't answer my question. The question was, repeat question. When they restart the word salad, don't engage further. I asked a simple question. If you can't answer it directly, that tells me what I need to know. And understand this, confusion is a choice they're making. Clarity would hold them accountable. They're choosing confusion. Put your questions in writing when possible. Text or email. Make them respond in a format where the word salad is visible and documented. The concept. The silent treatment isn't just ignoring someone. It's a calculated punishment designed to train you through fear of abandonment. Psychologically, this is a form of emotional abuse recognized by therapists worldwide. It leverages humans' fundamental need for social connection and our fear of rejection. When someone withdraws all communication, all acknowledgement, all presence, they're essentially saying, you don't exist to me. For social creatures like humans, this triggers panic at a primal level. The reality. You have a disagreement. A healthy person discusses it. A narcissist vanishes. No calls returned. No texts answered. Complete radio silence. Hours turn into days. You panic. You apologize even though you're not sure what you did wrong. You beg for communication. You promise to change. When they finally respond, and they will because the silent treatment only works if they eventually come back, they act like nothing happened. Or they're cold and distant until you've sufficiently groveled. The message is clear. Disagree with me, and I'll make you feel like you don't exist. This isn't conflict resolution. This is behavioral conditioning. They're training you to fear their withdrawal more than you value your own boundaries. The warning signs. They disappear after conflicts instead of resolving them. The length of silence is disproportionate to the disagreement. They refuse to communicate even about practical, necessary matters. The silence feels like punishment, not space. Here's the distinction. Healthy people might need time to cool down. They'll communicate that. I need a few hours to process this. Let's talk tonight. Narcissists withdraw without explanation and without a timeline, maximizing your anxiety. The defense. Don't chase. This is crucial. The silent treatment works because you panic and pursue. If you refuse to chase, the weapon loses power. Accept the silence. Use it. Enjoy it even. Fill it with activities you want to do, people you want to see, peace you deserve. And when they come back, because they can't resist having an audience, don't reward the behavior with gratitude or relief. Address it directly. Going silent isn't acceptable communication. If you need space, use your words. Otherwise, this relationship doesn't work. Prepare for them to be shocked. They're used to you begging for their return. The concept. Future faking is making elaborate promises about the future with no intention of following through. It's the trips you'll take together, the business you'll start, the family you'll build, the changes they'll make, the therapy they'll go to, the person they'll become. All fiction. All designed to keep you invested in a future that will never arrive. The psychological mechanism is hope. As long as you believe things will get better, you'll tolerate things being terrible right now. They're selling you a future to make you accept an unacceptable present. The reality. Next year we'll buy a house. Next year comes. The promise transforms into, well, the market isn't right, or we need to save more, or it's just never mentioned again. I'll go to therapy. They never schedule the appointment. I'll stop drinking. They don't. I'll treat you better. They won't. The promises are detailed, emotionally compelling, and completely empty. I've reviewed case after case where people stayed in destructive situations for years, sometimes decades, chasing a promised future. An entrepreneur stayed with an abusive partner because they'd promised to invest in her business. A man stayed with an unfaithful wife because she promised to change after they had kids. Then after the kids started school. Then after the kids graduated. The carrot stays dangling. You keep walking. You never reach it. The warning signs. Big promises, no action. Plans that sound wonderful but never move past the talking stage. Promises that conveniently require you to sacrifice something now for a payoff later. The timeline keeps shifting. Next month becomes next year, becomes eventually, becomes, why are you pressuring me? Track promises versus action. The gap tells you everything. The defense. Judge people by their behavior, not their promises. Words are free. Actions require commitment. When they make future promises, respond neutrally. That sounds nice. Let's see what happens. Don't invest emotionally in promised futures. And set a deadline for yourself privately. If they promise to change, go to therapy, address their issues, give them a specific time frame in your own mind. Not theirs. Yours. If nothing changes by that deadline, you have your answer. Hope is beautiful. But hope without evidence is just fantasy. And fantasy keeps you trapped. The concept. No matter what they do, they're always the victim. This is Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. It's a manipulation tactic so common in abusive relationships that therapists have an acronym for it. They hurt you, but somehow, by the end of the conversation, you're comforting them. They're the wounded party. You're the villain. Reality has been inverted. The reality. They insult you publicly. When you pull them aside to address it, they tear up. I can't believe you're attacking me. I was just joking. You're so mean to me. You never let me have fun. I feel like I have to walk on eggshells around you. Wait, what just happened? You went from addressing their hurtful behavior to apologizing for hurting their feelings by addressing their hurtful behavior. This tactic appears in every narcissistic relationship. Parent narcissists do this to their children constantly. After everything I've done for you, you're going to criticize me? I sacrificed everything, and this is the thanks I get. Bosses do it to employees. I gave you this opportunity, and you're complaining about working conditions? The pattern is always the same. Accountability enters the conversation. Victim status emerges as a shield. The warning signs. You can't address problems without them crying, sulking, or claiming you're attacking them. They're always the most hurt person in any conflict, even conflicts where they caused harm. Their suffering is always greater than yours. Their pain is always more valid. You end up comforting them for things they did to you. The defense. Don't comfort them. This will feel cruel because you're a decent person. But comforting them for their behavior is training them that weaponized victimhood works. Stay focused. I understand you're upset. We can address your feelings after we address the issue I raised. Refuse to let them change the subject from their behavior to their feelings about being held accountable for their behavior. And recognize this pattern. Real victims don't weaponize their victimhood. They don't use suffering as a manipulation tool. If someone's pain only appears when they need to avoid accountability, that's strategy, not suffering. The concept. Narcissists don't respect boundaries. They test them systematically to see what they can get away with. You set a boundary. They push against it. If you don't enforce it, they learn the boundary is negotiable. If you do enforce it, they learn they need to be more strategic. This is psychological reconnaissance. They're mapping your defenses to find the weaknesses. The reality. You tell them you need personal time on Sunday mornings. The next Sunday, they create an emergency that requires your immediate attention. You cave. They've learned Sundays aren't actually off-limits. You say you won't tolerate yelling. They yell. You engage with the argument. They've learned yelling is an effective tactic. You establish you won't discuss your finances with them. They bring it up casually in front of others. You awkwardly participate to avoid a scene. They've learned public pressure works. Every boundary you set without consequences becomes permission. Forensic psychologists studying stalking behavior identified this same pattern. Stalkers test boundaries incrementally. A text, then a call, then showing up at work, then waiting outside your home. Each violation that goes unaddressed escalates the next. It's not accidental. It's methodical. The warning signs. You set boundaries and they immediately push against them. They frame boundary violations as accidents, jokes, or misunderstandings. They make you feel guilty for having boundaries at all. Why are you being so rigid? You're being controlling. I can't do anything right. That's not confusion. That's resistance. The defense. Enforce every boundary every time. Not with anger. Not with lengthy explanations. With immediate, consistent consequences. They violate a boundary, the consequence happens. No discussion. No negotiation. No second chances for that particular violation. And here's what you need to understand. Healthy people respect boundaries. They might not always understand them, but they respect them. People who consistently violate your boundaries after you've clearly communicated them aren't confused. They're telling you who they are. Believe them. The concept. After they've hurt you, after they've crossed lines, after they've shown you who they really are, they love bomb you back into compliance. This isn't the same as the initial idealization phase. This is strategic reconciliation designed to make you forget what just happened. It's the cycle of abuse in action. Tension building, incident, reconciliation, calm. Then repeat. The reconciliation phase is the most dangerous because it gives you hope that the abuse was an aberration, not the pattern. The reality. They scream at you, say unforgivable things, maybe get physical. The next day, flowers, apologies, tears, promises, affection you haven't felt in months. I don't know what came over me. You bring out the best in me, but sometimes I get scared and I sabotage us. I'm going to change. I'll do anything. You're the only person who understands me. And you think, see, they do love me. That other stuff was just a rough patch. No, the rough patch is the truth. This is the anesthetic before they hurt you again. This cycle is so predictable that domestic violence researchers can map it. The violence happens, the honeymoon period follows, tension builds again, violence happens again. The honeymoon periods get shorter. The violence gets worse. The warning signs. The nicest version of them only appears after the worst version. The affection you crave is used as a reward for tolerating mistreatment. The cycle repeats. Hurt, love bomb, hurt, love bomb. You find yourself thinking, if only they were like this all the time. That thought itself is the warning sign, the defense. Recognize reconciliation as part of the abuse cycle, not evidence that the abuse is ending. Judge the relationship by the worst moments, not the best. The best moments are bait. The worst moments are truth. And understand, change is measured in consistent behavior over extended time. Not apologies, not promises, not temporary good treatment after they've hurt you. Real change is boring. It's months of steady, reliable, respectful behavior. Dramatic apologies and grand gestures are theater. Let me take you through the remaining tactics more efficiently because you need to recognize the full arsenal. Tactic number 12. Smear campaigns. They destroy your reputation before you can expose theirs. They tell everyone you're crazy, abusive, unstable. By the time you speak up, they've already controlled the narrative. Tactic number 13. Hoovering. Named after the vacuum cleaner. When you try to leave, they suck you back in. New promises, fake changes, manipulated emergencies. Anything to pull you back into range. Tactic number 14. Flying monkeys. They recruit others to harass you, guilt you, or relay messages. Family, friends, even therapists can become unwitting accomplices in their manipulation. Tactic number 15. Baiting. They provoke you deliberately to get a reaction, then use your reaction as evidence that you're the problem. You're emotional, unstable, aggressive. They're just the innocent victim of your outburst. Tactic number 16. Withholding. They withhold affection, information, sex, approval, resources, anything you need to keep you desperate and compliant. The withdrawal is the punishment. The return is the reward. Tactic number 17. Movable goalposts. You meet their standard, they change it. Nothing is ever enough because enough would mean you're not constantly striving for their approval. Tactic number 18. Infantilization. They treat you as incompetent, incapable, childlike. They make decisions for you, dismiss your opinions, and undermine your confidence until you actually become dependent on them. Tactic number 19. Isolation. Slowly, systematically, they cut you off from friends, family, support systems. Not dramatically, subtly, until one day you realize they're your only source of social contact. Tactic number 20. Selective amnesia. They remember every mistake you've made. They forget every promise they broke, every boundary they violated, every harm they caused. Their memory is a weapon used against you, never against them. These final tactics appear when they're losing control, when you're waking up, when they're getting desperate. Tactic number 21. Threats of self-harm. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. You're now responsible for their life. Leaving becomes attempted murder in your mind. Tactic number 22. Financial abuse. Controlling money, ruining your credit, creating dependency so leaving becomes financially impossible. Tactic number 23. Legal threats. Threatening custody battles, lawsuits, restraining orders. Using the legal system as a weapon of harassment. Tactic number 24. Stalking. When nothing else works, they monitor you, follow you, show up unannounced. It's about power and surveillance. Tactic number 25. Character assassination. Beyond smear campaigns, they contact your employer, your family, anyone who'll listen. They're systematically destroying your life. Tactic number 26. Manufactured crises. Sudden emergencies, health scares, disasters that only you can help with. Testing whether they can still control you through crisis. Tactic number 27. The grand gesture. The final hoover. The thing they know you've always wanted. Therapy, marriage, change, commitment. Offered precisely when you're walking away. It's fake. It's always fake. 27 weapons. 27 tactics designed to dismantle your reality, your confidence, your boundaries, your sanity. If you recognized more than a handful of these in someone in your life, you're not dealing with a flawed person who makes mistakes. You're dealing with someone running a psychological warfare campaign against you. Let me be crystal clear about something. This isn't about villainizing people with narcissistic traits. This is about recognizing patterns that destroy lives. Because here's what nobody tells you when you're trapped in narcissistic manipulation. You didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't control it. The only thing you control is whether you stay in range of these weapons. The most important thing you can understand is this. These tactics work because good people don't naturally think this way. If you're watching this video feeling shocked that people actually do these things, that's because you're not like them. Your empathy, your compassion, your desire to see the best in people. These are beautiful qualities. They're also vulnerabilities that narcissists are trained to exploit. You might be thinking right now about someone specific. Maybe a partner, maybe a parent, maybe a boss or a friend. And part of you is making excuses for them. But they had a difficult childhood. But they're under a lot of stress. But they can be so wonderful sometimes. Listen to me carefully. Explanation is not excuse. Understanding why someone uses these tactics doesn't mean you have to tolerate them. Empathy for their pain doesn't require you to accept your own destruction. The pattern is the truth. Not the exceptions. Not the good days. Not the promises. Not the potential you see in them. The pattern. If you've been on the receiving end of these tactics, you need to understand something else. The confusion you feel isn't your fault. The exhaustion isn't weakness. The fact that you can't make sense of what's happening to you isn't because you're not smart enough. It's because these tactics are designed to be crazy-making. They're supposed to confuse you. That's how they work. Your sanity is not the problem. Their behavior is. Now, what do you do with this information? First, trust yourself again. Your perceptions are valid. Your feelings are real. Your boundaries are reasonable. If someone makes you doubt these things consistently, that person is not safe. Second, document everything. Not because you're paranoid, because gaslighting thrives in the absence of evidence. Keep records. Save messages. Write down incidents with dates and details. When they tell you something didn't happen, you'll have proof that it did. Third, build your support system back up. Reach out to the people you've been isolated from. Reconnect with friends and family. Find a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse. Not all therapists understand these dynamics, and some can actually make it worse. Fourth, create an exit strategy if you need one. And some can actually make it worse. Fourth, create an exit strategy if you need one. Financial independence, safe housing, legal protection. Whether it's a relationship, a job, or a family dynamic, you need options. Hope is not a plan. Planning is a plan. And fifth, this is critical. Stop trying to make them understand how they've hurt you. Stop trying to get acknowledgement, apology, or closure from someone who uses these 27 tactics. You will never get it. Not real closure. Not genuine accountability. They know what they're doing. Your explanations won't create an epiphany. Your pain won't create empathy they don't have. The closure comes from you, not from them. I want to address something else. Some of you watching this might recognize these tactics in yourself. Maybe you're realizing you've used some of these patterns. Maybe you're horrified by that recognition. If that's you, that horror is actually a good sign. It means you have the self-awareness and empathy that personality-disordered individuals lack. People with true narcissistic personality disorder don't watch videos about narcissistic manipulation and think, "Oh no, that's me." But if you have engaged in some of these behaviors, the question is, what are you going to do about it? Awareness without change is just well-informed manipulation. Get help, real help, not from a partner you've harmed, but from a qualified therapist who specializes in personality disorders. Accountability means action, not just acknowledgement. Let me bring this back to where we started. Right now, someone might be studying you. They might have memorized your insecurities. They might know exactly which buttons to push. But now, you know their playbook. All 27 tactics. And awareness changes everything. You can't unsee these patterns now. You'll recognize them in real time. You'll see the love bombing for what it is. You'll catch the gaslighting before it takes root. You'll identify the triangulation, the projection, the word salad. Knowledge is power. but only if you use it. These tactics only work in the dark, in confusion, in isolation. Shine a light on them and they lose their potency. Your job isn't to fix the narcissist. Your job isn't to save them, change them, or prove your worth to them. Your job is to protect yourself. Before I go, I need you to understand one final thing. Leaving isn't failure. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. If someone told you that walking away from a burning building was giving up, you'd think they were insane. This is the same principle. Some people are burning buildings, and you don't owe it to anyone to burn with them. You deserve relationships where you don't have to decode behavior, where you're not constantly walking on eggshells, where love doesn't feel like warfare. That's not a fantasy. That's the bare minimum standard. If this video helped you see something you needed to see, do me a favor, share it with someone who might need it too. Not publicly, not in a way that creates drama, but quietly, privately, to someone you know is struggling with a relationship they can't make sense of. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is help someone else name what's happening to them. And if you want to dive deeper into this content, understanding trauma bonds, recovering from narcissistic abuse, recognizing these patterns in different contexts, subscribe to this channel. This is what we do here. We shine lights in dark places. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. 27 weapons in the narcissist's arsenal. Now you know every single one. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? The battlefield is your life. The stakes are your sanity. The choice is yours. Stay aware. Stay vigilant. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one. End.